Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today I'll be showing you how to get comfortable on Factory and start improving on this map. The 50 PMC kills in-game event questline has just ended, and I did every single one of them here, so this is the perfect time to revisit Factory and I have lots of data for it. Let's jump right in with fighting out of the spawns. It took me 39 raids to finish this quest, and of these I spawned in the Forklifts area 21 times, 19 times in the Backroom itself and 2 times down the left-hand corridor, so in my opinion it's the most important spawn. When we spawn into Forklifts, we spawn into this Backroom here, and I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're less experienced with Factory is staying in this room too long. It feels quite defensible because you've got this right-hand peek out of the doorway, and you know that enemies have to come through this door and you could sit by this box. But I really don't advise staying in here at all because a lot of people check this. It's one of the most frequent spawns on Factory, and if players are coming in from either down here or down here, they're going to know pretty much where you are. If you look around the corner, you're going to be here. They can slowly cut through, and eventually most people are ending up stood behind this box. And even you can have grenades thrown in, and you can actually fire through this wall as well. Like, this wall is not going to save you. You can actually shoot through this material, and you can shoot through, and it doesn't do quite as much damage, but yeah, you can take bullets through the wall, which is not ideal. So for me, the best thing to do is to get out of here straight away. If you do want to painkiller, I advise not using a golden star. This takes too long, in my opinion. 7 seconds use time. By the time that you've got out the door, it's too late. If you really are desperate to painkiller, what I would do is use like a propofol or an adrenaline or something. You just about have time to use that as you're sprinting out through the doorway. But in my opinion, the thing that I do every single raid now is I come out this door, I run and I jump and I look down this corridor. And what this does is this gives you just a little split second of information, because there's another spawn right down the end here, and a lot of people double back down into this glass corridor area. Now, I don't like attacking from here, but some people just do it anyway. A lot of people are catching people out from this Forklift spawn in the first place, so always run past, do a little jump, and check down here to see if there's anyone there. It's very, very, very unlikely that someone is going to be able to kill you as you jump through, because your head is moving in an arc through the air. You're only visible for a split second between the backrest of this forklift here and behind the pillar over here on the side. So once you're in this area, this is much safer to be in. I actually don't mind this, and a lot of people say that they don't like the forklift spawn because you can get aggressively pushed either from down the corridor on the left or down the glass corridor that we just looked at here. But the one thing that I've just shown you there, without really saying anything, is that we have a right peek on this corridor, and we have a right peek on this corridor. And yes, you have to move around a little bit, but there's quite a few places that you can be inside here to still get some good angles. If someone's coming down the corridor, you can be peeking out here, you can be peeking out there. Sometimes people sit behind that forklift there. You can be peeked right up close there. You can come behind this pillar, and you can right peek out there while still keeping an eye on that. You could be behind this forklift. Like, there's lots of places that you can be. It's actually very difficult to push in. When I'm not in forklifts and I have to decide to come down here, this corridor is actually very scary to push in. There is a spawn right here, and this is the spawn that I got twice. I had 19 down there, and I had 2 down here. And you can push immediately from this spawn down to here and fight somebody just as they're kind of coming out of the door, especially if they're sluggish. If they're trying to put on a painkiller or whatever, you've now got them pinned in that room, which is why I think you should immediately leave there if you can once you're inside. But once there's been a little fight or somebody's kind of posted up in this area, it's actually very hard to push down this corridor. They'll hear you coming, and once you're in here, you're very committed. They can just push around around this corner and just pre-fire you and kill you pretty easily. So I hate coming down here, honestly. And likewise from the other side. If you're down glass corridor, I think this is a complete death trap, honestly. Like, a lot of people make this mistake. If you start here, firstly, you can shoot through this box. You can get shot through this box by people in forklifts. Secondly, once you decide to commit and push, all you've got is this little box here, which you can't really properly hide behind. I think if you duck your head, you might be able to completely disappear. But what have you got here? Like a weird crouched left hand? Like, it just doesn't really make sense. You're fighting against somebody with a right hand peek around some of these forklifts here. And they could also be up here, and they can move to there without you seeing them. So I hate moving into this area at all, unless it's right at the beginning, and I only do that from this spawn to start with. Oh, I really like this area. It's very defensible. You can technically come down here, but I don't think this is sensible for the same reasons as why it's bad going down glass corridor. Because if you come down here, there's somebody inside this room and you're pushing down there. There's literally nowhere for you to go. They can just come around the corner, or they can drop down, or they can peek you, or they could be around this corner down here. It feels very dangerous. So I typically don't tend to push down here unless I know that somebody's not there. We'll go back up here and we'll have a look at a few other avenues of where you can go from there. So broadly speaking, unless the two people are quite coordinated, you can usually take them on one at a time. You have a big advantage on this person, and especially if they try to push in, you have a very high chance of winning in that particular fight. And on this side, this is a little more tricky, I find, in general. Sometimes when you peek, you can just get shot from some really obscure angles, because people can hide themselves very well behind this little forklift here, or they can see you through this rest here. It's actually quite hard to hit them through there. So I'm a little bit dubious of that sometimes. Occasionally, you'll spawn in this forklift spawn, and there won't be anybody here. At that point, it's kind of up to you. I don't like running down here for the same reason I don't like coming this way in the first place. So what I typically tend to do is I'm starting out here at the door. We run across and we look. There's nobody there. We run over here and we listen, see if somebody's here. We hold this angle for a minute, maybe throw a grenade or something. Nobody here. Push across. We can, slowly cut around here just in case there's somebody behind these containers, behind these canisters, because sometimes there is. And then if there is nobody there, I don't really like going down here, because again, we're on a left hand. Somebody can easily be sat down at the end of this corridor and just peek around, or they could just wait. One of my favorite tactics, just you wait here, you wait until you hear somebody running, and then you step out when they're halfway down the corridor, because they've got nowhere to go. They don't know when you're going to pop out. You know exactly where they are, and you die. So once we get to this point, typically I either open this door and come down here and go down the tunnel and go through that way, or what I've been doing a little bit more recently, opening this door up here. Sometimes you can catch random stragglers like wandering around in this area, but the rest of the time I just sprint out from here and then jump down here. Occasionally you can catch people by surprise like this without them realizing that you're going to be here. Now, you do have to be a little careful down this corridor, but oftentimes I find that this is normally fine. And what I'll usually do is go down to this section first, into this S-bend, because this is another super defensible position that's good just to chill for a second. It's near the middle of the map. You can hear what's going on up in office corridor, and you have a right-hand peek on this corridor. You can also hear what's going on in the back sort of medical area upstairs, and you have a right-hand peek on this corridor too. So if you just need to take a breath for a second and listen to what's happening on the map, this is not a bad place to stop. So the second most common spawn that I had was this one, which is the Gate 0 spawn. This is the one that looks out over onto the office corridor kind of area there, with a little balcony, the platform, raised platform made of metal, and this kind of workshop piece up here. This is the one that I spawned at 10 times out of the 39, so this was a quarter of the time, and most of the time, you can just run up to your office corridor if you really want to. You are slightly exposed from somebody coming this way, but there's only one spawn around this corner, so usually it's fine. Occasionally there's a spawn over the boxes. There's a really rare one on the other side of it, and sometimes you can end up in a tussle there. So I typically go this way. I go through this door, and I don't really like fighting an office corridor that much anyway, actually, unless a little bit later in the game. So you can look down here. There's nobody here normally. There is a spawn down there. It's very rare. Occasionally you can get caught out. That's to kill a bro. Ha! And sometimes people on this bit, they run from this room down here, which we'll talk about in a moment. They can come out of this one sometimes and run down here and try to cut you off, but it's not very often. So normally I find that when I run down here, I pretty much just have the place to myself. Outside of this spawn, there aren't any others. People are either going to office corridor or doing something else. So usually I will path all the way through, all the way down into this kind of silos area. Check down this corridor just in case. And from there, I tend to push into here. Now sometimes you can get caught out by the left hand in this particular position. It is possible, but if you can get yourself into this position in here, then this is a good starting point to do a big push on the forklift area. And I find that the forklift area is fought in a lot, and people aren't always pushing straight away. So a lot of the time, I quite like to join the action. You can either come this side, which I almost prefer even though it's a left hand, because this side you end up leaving your back more exposed to people out in the meds corridor, and if they're like round this corner. So I tend to come this way, just have a quick peek, run down, and you can make a decision. You can either decide to push through here. You do expose yourself to people down glass corridor running up this way, but you can open this door. This is the one that we had open earlier. This one starts closed. You can either open this door, though it is kind of obvious what you're trying to do. You know, when you come through here, you can cut people off in this area because they're normally defending against somebody down there. But you can put them in a pretty tricky position, especially if they're fighting somebody at that point and they're stuck in here. You'll force them to fight you instead of them. This door you can only open from the inside, so you can't get into this one in particular. But what you can do, and this is usually my preferred method, is going down here, through here. Just be a little careful of this, but it's very rare that somebody sat on this corner. And then up this set of stairs. And this gives you a relatively strong position to actually start fighting. So what I usually will do is open the door and either cut the angle really tight like this, so I can start right lean peeking round, and then you can maybe fight somebody down the corridor if there's no one in here. Or what I do is, let's just close it again, open the door and then just pedal backwards so that if I am in trouble, I can just flop down here, maybe heal myself or whatever. Then you have this little kind of sneaky spot. Depends on the kind of gun that you've got. Some guns won't fit in this area. This one, the AK-74N, will actually fit here, but if you've got a longer weapon, it might not fit there. So you can just shoot over this, which is kind of nice, especially if somebody's like lean peeking around here. They don't really expect you to be all the way down here and into this stairwell. We'll just go and have a quick look at what that looks like from this side. If you're, say you're peeking at the closest spot, you know, you're in here, you're not behind anything in particular, you're just very low target. People are expecting you to either be leaning around here or leaning around here. In general. So I don't mind entering the fight from here, but if you hear somebody and they're kind of like, they're just stuck in this area and they're not letting you come in, you can always come back down from here. You have options, right? Because you can backpedal yourself out through here, up into the medical area, up here. You do have to be a little careful, obviously, because this is super open, but then you can come around this side and flank them through here, which is another potential. And this is a right lean peek here. I don't like running down here particularly, but if someone's really stationary, then sometimes it can work, or you can nade down and push afterwards so that they can't just walk out. You do have to be a little careful about people in this corner because you can't actually see them there, so they can peek there, but most of the time dudes end up in this area and they're just trying to hold it. And this is actually not necessarily the best angle because of the left. It's not the best angle to hold that corridor from, so you can push in here sometimes. Just depends on how confident you're feeling and what the skill level of the people that you're facing seems to be, which you can sometimes tell just from audio. Third most common spawn for me was Gate 3. I had this in our 39 raids 4 times, so it's about 10%, and you have a lot of choices from here. You can either go and camp the X-ray, no, I'm just kidding, but you've got the glass corridor right here, which I don't advise fighting in, to be honest with you, because you've got a left here, and as we said before, you've got this box that you can be shot through, and this corridor is kind of toxic. You can maybe stand here with like powered optic or whatever and try to catch somebody who's jumping over, but you're at a big disadvantage, so I typically tend to not like doing that. The other alternatives that you've got is running down this way, because there's nobody that spawns in this area. They all spawn either here, and they're like busy fighting in forklifts. So you can actually just run down here into the center and then do whatever you like. You can either double back and you can open one of these doors and get into forklifts really fast. You could push into the meds area potentially, because there are people that spawn over there as well, which we'll look at in a sec. And you can take this right hand here for people down in this corridor or behind these boxes. So that's actually not a terrible way to start. Or another alternative, which I typically don't mind, is you can run up through here and then down into this section. And you can either, you can do whatever. You can either like man this, or you can run straight across there. The other way is probably the most obvious and the most well used amongst all of the spawn points with Gate 3 is just running straight into the office corridor. This is typically the closest spawn to the office corridor, so it is the fastest way to get in there. You're competing for the other close spawns on the other side of the map, the ones from Gate 0, especially if you spawn in the actual main area. So you spawn in here, you run through here. Now, office corridor itself is a bit of a strange one. You can go straight through the middle here and run all the way to the other door and open it up and try to fight people in here. It is possible, but you don't have the best angle. They could be coming from anywhere around here. They could be going upstairs. You've got a left-hand peek here. There's also people able to come in through this door as well. So I don't really like going this way. My preferred method is also not to go right to the top. Because if you go all the way to the top, again, we're stuck here with our left peek, which just isn't really sensible. You can come into this area, but typically at the start of the raid, there's not that many people milling around here. Most people are stuck in forklifts at this point, and you've spawned here anyway, so you know no one's going to be there. And I just don't really like fighting it. It's very, very awkward. They've got some quite nice cover here to right peek over this box. So sometimes we'll go and have a look, but I don't always do that. What I like to do is run through here. I like running through bathrooms and trying to occupy their stairwell relatively early. Because now we have the ability to go both up and down. People can come through this, but it's nowhere near as defensible because if they're on this metal, they're making a very obvious sound. So you could just hear the cue that they're on here. You basically know where they are. It is a left peak again, but most people are sprinting at this point because they don't want to be caught in this area. You can hold this stairwell relatively easily, people coming through the bottom. If you think you're in a troubled position, you can always run up to the top. Then you've got the nice angle on here. Not that anyone's going to be there right at the start, but you know that your back's going to be relatively covered. You can actually look at people through here. So there's the spawn in there, through that door, so you can get people there. If someone's in Postman Pat, you can kill them in there. And you can get some information here. Again, I wouldn't advise like leaning left out of this particular angle because you might just get your head shut off, but you can get some information out from this side. So that's not too bad. That's what I like to do from gate 3 at least. One of the less common spawns is the one that I like to call the medical spawn because of this medical tent here. And you kind of spawn like here or like around in this area somewhere. And this one's a bit funny. You do have some options. One of the quickest ways to get into PvP is to run down this side. And somebody spawns usually in this room. And so they have to come out of here. This room is very indefensible. It's a left peak, so it's really not advised to stay in there. And so people usually run out of here straight away. But if you're really fast, you can sometimes get into a little fight here. Obviously, you've got to be a bit careful from people fighting you down that side. But usually, it's okay. The other way that you can go is from down here. You can go into the forklifts. Now, you can go the way that I don't recommend going, which is down here and then looking down this corridor. But sometimes at the very start of the raid, you can hear that the fighting is already happening at the end. So you pretty well know that no one's going to be here, which allows you to just push down here with impunity because somebody else is either here, or they've already pushed right in and they're up here and they're fighting with somebody who started in the back room. And so if this is the case and you can hear this like massive fight going on, you're usually good to push up to at least this point, and then you can sometimes get a third party off and punish them that way. If you don't hear anything or you think that this corridor is potentially guarded, then you can do exactly what we did on the other one, which is to go downstairs and you can come through here instead. And this way you'll actually be a lot faster than if you're coming from gate 0 across the other side of the map. You can run through here and there's not really a lot they can do about it, right, until you're actually in this point. And then again, you can pincer people. So if somebody's in here but they're also fighting someone down there, kind of a nasty position to be in. Oh no. It's not on full auto. It really depends, like it's so dependent upon exactly where people sit, but those are some alternatives. Either that, or you can just run straight to office as well. Not a terrible way to go for it. I spawn a lot over in the medical area as a scav for some reason, and you can go from there, across to here, through the little fence part, up these stairs, and then straight over here, into there. And these doors all start closed, so if you know that if one of these doors is open, you know that somebody's already been through, so just be careful. There are a couple of other random spawns across the map, but this is the only other one that I got in the 39 raids that I did on the quest. And this is the one that I call the Backroom spawn. I don't know what other people call it, or like 1984 I think sometimes people call it because of this 1984 up here, because of this area. But yeah, going in this one, this is a terrible room to sit in. It's very easy to get caught out. So what I like to do, pretty much always when I spawn in this room, I run over here, and I jump straight over the fence, and I go down into this area. And then from there, I can either go up to office corridor, or I can push down and go into forklifts, all the usual stuff that we've talked about on the other ones. If you're being really aggressive, there is another option, which is to push out straight away. I typically wouldn't expect to go down here and meet anybody, because it does seem unusual to meet somebody while you're coming through here. I know I use that route a lot, but people tend to just like make a beeline for the office. What you can do is you can come up to this side, and you can peek here with the right hand, and you can grab people who are coming out of this door maybe, or people who have like run through here and coming out of that door. Because some people do just like make a beeline straight across up to the office corridor and up this platform. So if you're really fast, you can catch people in this area and get them as they're running through, which is interesting. Or you could just run across and get into office yourself through this door. That's another option. But yeah, typically I just tend to jump right down into here, and I like pushing forklifts. Honestly, that's the thing that I do on most of my raids, even if I start all the way far away, because oftentimes by the time I get there, people are still juking it out, and you can normally pick up some free kills. So yeah, push through here, all the way through here, and then based on the sounds that you hear, you can either decide to push up into this section there, or as I said before, you go down this corridor, up the stairs, and push into forklifts itself, and make people's lives really hard. Oh, I think I forgot to mention how many times I spawned in those. So the medical spawn, I spawned in twice in the 39 raids, and the back room, I spawned in also twice. So it's about 5% chance for those, it seems. And there are, as I said, another couple of random spawns across the map, but they're broadly the same. These are the ones that you're going to get most of the time. Now, the mid-game of Factory is kind of interesting. There's lots of places that you can be, and it's not really possible to make a full guide for literally everything because there's just so many different combinations of where players are, where you are, the sounds, what types of players you're playing against, what weapons you're using, that kind of thing. But I think it is worth spending a little bit more time talking about the office because it is probably the most played in area of Factory. Now, when I'm moving into office, I don't really like coming in through here unless it's very early on in the raid because you can be shot at, especially if you're coming over from this side and you've come up from Forklifts and, you know, glass corridor is safe, so you push through and then you come up to here. You could be shot from either through there or there. And sometimes it's hard to make out exactly where people are. So typically, I will always loop around and come through here instead. I much prefer this door. As a little side point, you can jump over this barbed wire so that it only touches you slightly and doesn't really slow you down if you do need to reposition. But this is a nice entry point into here. You can just make sure that nothing bad is going on down there. And then we've got the two stairwells. We've got this one, which is the vending machine stairs that I talked about before. I don't mind being up here for a bit of information gathering, but I don't like being here for long fights. You can hide behind here and shoot people up coming up the stairwell, which is not too bad. And then you've got the bathroom as well, which is kind of an interesting place. Like, lots of fights do happen in the bathroom. There are some tricky spots. One of them is this one. You can jump up onto these basins here. I don't have a super high strength. I'm not a mega Chad player, as you guys know. I only have 26 strength. You can get up here pretty easily. This is not a bad spot for defending because sometimes people aren't expecting you, and you can be anywhere along this wall. You get a little bit of leeway here, which is kind of nice. So if you open this door, like, they do have a right-hand peek, but you have a small positional advantage of being at some kind of, like, weird off-angle because, you know, you're up high. You could even be on this side if you want to, but I think that's probably a mistake. I do find that a lot of the fights that happen in the office corridor are a little bit random, which is why I tend not to come in here all that often, but I do prefer this stairwell to the vending machine stairwell. Now, when you're coming up and down the stairs, clearly you need to be extremely careful. People can see you from all sorts of funny angles. So as you're coming up here, we've got Abney Dude's spot that he made famous in his video about sitting in this corner. Because a lot of people come up the stairs, don't check this fully. And if you're leaned over, you can't necessarily see them. And then they spin round to check above. Because people often sit up here. That they can cover both the stairwell there. And they can see you coming pretty easily from here. And so they just look down and shoot at you. Or they're, you know, over on this side, kill you from there. So just make sure that, you know, if you are checking up like this, that you are also checking this little corner too, because people sometimes do like to sit in there, and occasionally people are a little bit further back as well on the off angle. Now, these railings are not really possible to shoot through. They'll block a lot of your shots, and it's a real pain, and make it very hard to get a kill. So just be very careful when you're shooting through those railings in particular. Oh, I didn't see him. He was camouflaged behind the fence. Nah. But once you're up in the office corridor, and you've made sure that there's nobody down here, the peak battle's not going to be happening, then usually what I will do is open both doors. You can kind of do either thing. You can open one door, open the other door, and try to come in. But I pretty much always open this door, and then make sure that nobody is sat on there, because it is possible to get up onto here, and you do find people peeking up onto that. So just make sure that there's nobody up on there first while you come in. Sometimes people are just stood in the center, or they use this as cover, or most commonly they're down by the filing cabinets because they were looting them in the first place. So that's my preferred method, because here you get a right peek onto the corridor itself, and then you open this door, and then you open here, you get a right peek through into the whole room too. Then once you're actually in here, I find the best place to hold it, or the best way to hold it, sometimes is you can have this door closed if you like, but I like sitting here. Now, again, left out of this is not great because they've got a right on you and you've got a left on them, which sucks. But if somebody comes down from this side, you can just wait by the door. This is very similar as to the med corridor down on the other side of the map. You can just wait here for somebody to push, and once they're halfway down the corridor, you can just pop out and kill them, because there's really nowhere for them to go. Like, this door can be opened, but it has to be breached. There's not really a way to sit behind this because the other filing cabinet gets in the way. This bookcase just doesn't really save you, and it's a left anyway. So I like sitting in here. I try to force people to push me if they're down there. I tend to try to not aggro on them if I can help it. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll start opening the filing cabinets just to try and bait them, and hopefully that they can come and open the door, but I'm actually, you know, this far away, I'm like right ready to fight them. Or you can open it and maybe like chuck a grenade out, especially if you have like an M67 grenade. That's actually a really good ploy. So take one of the M67 grenades, which have a 5-second timer, throw that and just push out straight away, because you can kill them and get down here while they're running away before the grenade's even gone off. And that's a real sneaky one. I think I saw that on Glorious Ease. Like, I don't use that enough because I tend not to bring M67s, but it can be an interesting one. I've seen a couple of high-end people do that, so that's quite fun. Fun way of, like, getting out of here if you are really, really stuck. If people are fighting down office corridor, I would just advise let them do it. And just let them duke it out first before you start to, like, try and peek out, because you're just going to get shot in the back of the head by one or the other. So, my favourite extract point by far is the one down at Gate 0. Depending on where I am on the map, I may be in the office corridor. I often seem to end up in there for whatever reason. So I'll tend to come down here and through here, down there, triple check that there's no other scavs or anyone just like lying around. Nobody coming down this corridor. You get a nice right peek there. This is a classic scav extract. This is the one that I run out of all the time when I'm playing scav and just running through. So just make sure there's nobody in there waiting to extract. Another right hand down there, which is kind of cool. And then this is very irregular. And out here, you can sometimes find some people around in this area. But normally, people will be in this room in particular camping the actual extract if they are going to be here at all, which I find is usually pretty rare. You can run across if you're concerned and close this door before you do so. And the same with this one. And just a reminder, you do need to have the factory exit key to get out of this door. It is well worth using if you're trying to play factory. You really want to get a factory exit key. You can refresh uses with Jaeger, which typically is cheaper. It depends, actually. You just check both. Sometimes the refresh is better. So basically, you have like a one-use factory key, and you combine it with 4 Iskras and an MRE. That can be a good way to refresh it. But you're going to need that key to unlock this door here. You can turn around, but you can't shoot while you're unlocking. And then you can run through here. And this is relatively well defended. I've defended this extract a couple of times from people. Oh no. Yeah! This is the one that I use 99.9% of the time, I would say. Actually, that's probably a bit too much. Let's say 90% of the time. The other extractions are kind of situational, I would say. The one that is quite good is the relatively new one, which is the med spawn one. This depends on where you are on the map. If you are down in the underground, you can use this way to get up there. I don't like coming up this ramp because you're so exposed to so many different areas. You have to defend yourself against here, people there, people all the way over here, people up there, guys behind here and here. Like, coming up here is really tough, but if you just painkiller up and just sprint, you can go either this side, and this side you can come and jump over the barrier like that, or you can get to it just through the tent, and you can even get to it over here by jumping over this side too. So if you're in that area being chased or whatever, you come through here and jump over. I had an epic one here, and usually what I'll do is I'll close the door there. I'll use that to buy myself some time while I unlock this door. Again, you can look, but you can't shoot. And if somebody is opening that door, then you can just open the door, super quick run in, and then try to defend yourself from here. But normally you know exactly where they are, so it does tend to help a little bit. Get out of my extract. The med extract is one that you can use sometimes. I often feel that if I'm in there, I am for some reason getting chased by player scavs. I don't really know why, but that just seems to be the way it goes. The other one that can be good is the seller's extract, and this is the one that people typically take after they've had a fight. They've killed 2 players, they've grabbed a load of stuff, and they're already really heavy, and they don't want to fight anymore. And it's one of the best parts about Factory that you can leave so quickly. Jump over here, or just walk around if you're a normal person. And you can go through here and just get out. This one's very straightforward, not very dangerous. If everybody's dead in this area, you pretty much can tell. You know that there's no one camping it. You run down here and you just extract out of there. That one is very straightforward. Then, my least favorite extract, Gate 3. It is the only extract that is open for everyone. And that is probably the reason why it is so toxic. It is the one that is known the most for being extract camped. It's very, very well known, so I'd be surprised if you didn't realize that. But one of the issues with Gate 3 is that you're either coming through here, or you're coming through here, and you have to come out into this big open area. People love to lie down in this box. They sit here, and they shoot you, and you try to come past. Or they can sit behind here. This is a bit less well defended because you can get shot from here, but it's not too bad, depending on how late the raid is. And sometimes people sit behind here. Sometimes people aren't even extra camping here. They've just got kind of stuck, because if you're in this bit, you can just get like really pinned in by people in the office area, which is pretty sucky, and it can be quite hard. Other than that, people do actually sit in the extract itself. So I have seen people on this corner right here. I've seen people on the off angle there, just waiting for you to come in because they're expecting you to be here, but you're actually here. And I got killed by that the other day because I sprinted in to try to take this guy off guard, and it turned out he was there instead. Sometimes people sit right at the back. They don't like taking this left hand, so if you run in and there's nobody there, then maybe it's okay to come this way. Typically speaking, I go to the left because it avoids getting shot from behind, and you don't normally have time to close the door. So if you do see somebody, just be careful that they're not lean peeking there. If they are, then you might need to go this way around instead, which that also happened to me the other day. Once you've cleared this front room, And open up this, and then you've got a right hand here. So you're actually kind of at an advantage. I do see people sometimes lying here. People occasionally are right there, but it doesn't seem that often. Most of the time, people are right at the back, either here or here, like they're just next to the extract. They'll try to kill you there. I don't really like gate 3, as I said. You can try to nade in, but often the nades won't kill people these days because the explosive range of them for lethality isn't actually that high now. I avoid gate 3 unless I really, really have to take it for whatever reason. But yeah, if you don't have the factory exit key, you're going to have to come out of here, so just try to be a little careful. Out of the office corridor, the best way is just to run down here. And you can, if you just like sprint run down here, you can just press yourself up against this and jump and get over there. So it stops you having to come down the stairs. It's a little bit of a faster way if you're getting chased by people through here. It means you might be able to survive and get out of gate 3 a little bit more easily than you might otherwise. So I hope that was helpful. I think Factory is one of those interesting maps because it's very formulaic. There's not really anywhere to camp in a bush, so you can pretty much always see where people are, even if they're kind of trying to hide. But it's an interesting one because there's just so few places to actually be. You can go through and almost do it step by step. So you cut this angle, you check this corner, you look up here, you go through here, you move here, you hear a sound, you kind of know where it is because the map's small enough and not that complicated in terms of terrain, which allows you to locate people much more easily. And I feel that Factory is sometimes a little bit more fair than some of the other maps. But I know that people do struggle, and especially whilst completing the 50 PMC challenge, lots of people coming into my stream telling me that they don't like Factory and how are they going to do it on other maps in the time frame, what's the easiest way outside of going to Factory. So I think there is definitely worth showing this, especially given that we ran so many raids on it recently. I am actually tempted to do a couple more of these guides, so if you are interested, then maybe put a comment down below with the map in it and I'll have a think about it. I mean, I'm not sure yet exactly whether I'm going to, but if a lot of people are interested, then I might give it a try. Otherwise, as usual, a big thanks to all my patrons, and as always, have fun in your raids.